Stop the Nazi games indeed. Hallo allemaal. Daar zijn we dan weer, RHTV Live. En ja, Israel, Iran, Russia, Ukraine, Sudan. Those who choose one side are guilty of fighting the other side. Ja mensen, we gaan natuurlijk naar politiek kijken en natuurlijk ook aanwijzen waar we zijn voor de internationale publiek. Ja, we gaan de kaarten bijpakken. So we are streaming live from Maastricht, which is in the south of the Netherlands. And of course, we're going to talk politics and geopolitics. And first, we're going to show a video of the Netherlands during World War I, right? So during World War I, we were neutral. We did not involve ourselves in a war, right? We gaan even kijken naar wat beelden van de Eerste Wereldoorlog, toen Nederland nog een neutrale land was. So, let's... Here we go.
Most of the countries of Europe declared sides and fought in the First World War, but by no means all of them. And remaining neutral, while it certainly kept down the numbers of the dead, had its own unique set of problems and difficulties. So today, we'll look at one of the neutral nations of Europe, the Netherlands. I'm Indy Nidell. Welcome to a Great War special episode about the Netherlands in the First World War. Neutrality was not something new to that nation. The Netherlands had practiced the politics of neutrality since 1839, when the Treaty of London had created an independent Belgium out of the southern part of the Netherlands. If you want to get technical, there had been an earlier treaty in 1831, but the Dutch had refused to sign it. Anyhow, like the rest of Europe, the Netherlands had gone through an industrial revolution, as well as a migration of large parts of the population from the countryside to the cities and towns. The Netherlands was in an interesting position, though, for it was a small nation with large overseas possessions, so it had a lot to lose from any European conflict. And so Dutch neutrality was political, independent, and armed. Political because, unlike, say, Swiss neutrality, it wasn't part of a constitution and was a policy that governments chose to follow. Independent because, unlike Belgian neutrality, it wasn't guaranteed by other nations. And armed because, since it wasn't guaranteed, it maintained an army. Its peculiar neutrality made it a center for peace conferences like those of 1899 and 1907, when Europe got together and agreed on just what was and was not acceptable during wartime, like no poison gas. We all know how that turned out. After Germany's unification in 1871, and for the next 2 generations, the Dutch well realized that a new conflict between France and Germany was more than possible. So they made no secret of the fact that they were pursuing armed neutrality, since an invasion through the Netherlands wasn't a bad plan of attack. Indeed, the German Schlieffen Plan to attack France initially did propose an invasion through both the Netherlands and Belgium to move troops faster and on a wider front. So the Dutch spent about a quarter of their annual budget on defense, modernized the New Holland waterline, and constructed Fortress Amsterdam, the last line of defense far from the borders. And Dutch politics in the years leading up to the war were all about maintaining neutral cred. Friendship with all, alliance with none was pretty much the motto. In fact, if you look at the Boer Wars, which were the British fighting against the descendants of Dutch settlers in South Africa, the Dutch government remained both neutral and aloof, even though there was widespread public sentiment for the Boers. Still, as July 1914 rolled on and the continent slid toward war, the Dutch mobilized an army of 200,000 men, and the railways were put under military orders. On August 2nd, 1914, German Army Chief of Staff Helmut von Moltke declared that Germany would respect Dutch neutrality. But on the 4th, because of the German invasion of Belgium, the southern part of the Netherlands, below the river Waal, was placed in a state of war to protect the borders. If you're wondering how the Dutch army was organized, it was based on the German model. They had developed a mobile field army built on a divisional system, and most arms and armaments were imported from Germany and Austria-Hungary. The big difference between the Dutch and German armies, other than size, was that the Dutch army was strictly for defense and didn't really have much offensive capability. And this defense was in two parts: the mobile army for the border regions and the fortress defense for the heartland. Also, the Dutch had a shorter period of training, only 8.5 months. That last was actually a political concession opposed by the military. The mobilization went really smoothly under the direction of Dutch Army Chief of Staff C.J. Snijders. Germany did not invade any part of the Netherlands, and Britain too announced it would respect Dutch neutrality. But the invasion of Belgium caused serious chaos in the Netherlands. I mean, neutrality is always going to have problems with smuggling, spy rings, and border activity, but the immediate problem was that of refugees. By the end of October 1914, an estimated 1 million refugees had arrived in the Netherlands from Belgium and France, which produced an immediate humanitarian crisis. They were spread out and housed throughout the country, which was logical to avoid the spread of disease and prevent chaos at the borders. And though most did return home eventually, tens of thousands remained for the duration of the war. I gotta say that people were very good about welcoming the refugees into their homes. In Rotterdam, for example, there were far more locations offered than there were actual refugees. But many soldiers also fled to the Netherlands, and the Germans even built a 200-kilometer-long electrical fence at the Dutch-Belgian border to prevent crossing. 2,000 volts. This was called the Wire of Death, and within 500 meters of the fence, if you could not explain your presence, you were executed on the spot. Between 2,000 and 3,000 people were victims of the fence during the war. Let's look at the Dutch economy for a minute. Before the war, the Dutch economy was heavily dependent on foreign trade. They traded with both the British and the Germans, and though Dutch coffee, tea, and tobacco from the colonies was sent all over Europe, the Netherlands was poor in natural resources and imported fuel, raw materials, tools, and even basic foods from all over Europe. Under international law, they could legally trade with both sides during wartime, but Britain demanded that ships to Rotterdam not carry any goods bound for Germany, and the Dutch were now caught between giving in, which might cause war with Germany, or refusing, which might cause starvation if imports were stopped. So the Dutch trade minister created a grain bureau, a government monopoly that bought grain and guaranteed the British that it was only for domestic consumption. This might have worked, but the Dutch government refused to regulate the economy. A new trade minister, Volkert Postuma, was, however, pretty much forced to interfere in the economy. At first, this was to combat rising prices caused by rising costs of transporting things overseas to the Netherlands. But in 1916, and I'm leaving a lot out here, he divided agricultural exports equally between Germany and Britain to try to make everybody happy. But by this time, the problem was there were not enough ships getting in to supply the country. The war at sea had strangled imports, and once the Germans reintroduced unrestricted submarine warfare in early 1917, almost no Dutch ships would even leave port. In 1914, over 12,000 ships entered Dutch ports. By 1918, it was 1/7 of that. So food prices rose, and draconian government practices were enacted to conserve food. And in 1917, when potatoes were to be exported to Germany and Britain in exchange for coal and not given to the hungry Dutch, riots ensued. By 1918, the Netherlands faced famine for the first time in centuries. The darkest hour came in March 1918 when the Allies requisitioned all merchant ships in Dutch ports. Dutch Queen Wilhelmina called it a theft, and the threat of war grew as Germany demanded compensation. But at the 11th hour, the Allies withdrew their demands and allowed the Dutch to avoid war with Germany. And as the tide of the war soon turned in favor of the Allies, an agreement was made to limit Dutch-German trade in favor of the return of Allied imports. But new elections in September that toppled the liberals from power and scattered riots in the army brought the threat of revolution along the lines of that in Russia. However, the government responded effectively. Snijders was forced to resign. Demobilization was promised. Food rations were increased. And within days, the threat, though it hadn't been that serious, was over. And after the war, well, It's not my job to tell you what happened after the war. Whether or not the ex-Kaiser of Germany would reside in Holland, how things would go economically. This was just a brief look at the incredibly complex situation of the Netherlands during the Great War, much of which I left out. Let's just say that the Dutch government had tried to build its policies on international law, but that was no match for might is right. And in reality, it was a shared interest in continuing Dutch neutrality by both the Central and Allied powers that kept that nation out of the war. The Netherlands was not the only country that stayed out of the war. Sweden was also neutral, and last summer we made a special episode about how that played out. If you want to see that, you can click right here. Don't forget.
Now, why am I mentioning the neutrality of the Dutch during World War I? Right? Why am I mentioning this? Well, if we look nowadays, we have a war in Ukraine and we're spending a lot of money towards Ukraine, right? So we are choosing a side. And the same goes for Israel, right? We condemn the Iranian attacks on Israel, whilst it was Israel who attacked an embassy in Syria, in Damascus. And, according to international law, they have the right to retaliate. And this is what Iran did to Israel, right? But we as the Netherlands, we do not stay neutral. We choose a side. That, my friends, is wrong. We need to stay neutral. Ja, we moeten neutraal blijven. We moeten ons niet gaan bemoeien met een oorlog. We moeten er zeker niet superveel geld aan uitgeven. So, we're just going to give you an overview of how much money the Dutch government had spent on Ukraine for the last 2 years. So, in 2023, last year, 2.5 billion euros, gifts to Ukraine and extended towards 2025, right? But now it's extended even more because our government went to Kiev and promised Zelensky and his corrupt regime that we'd have 10 years of, support towards Ukraine. We used to be a neutral country. We waren ooit neutraal. En nu geven we superveel geld uit aan Oekraïne. En zoiets kan toch niet waar zijn? Dit is niet de Nederland wat ik dus eigenlijk ken. This is not the Netherlands that I know, right? We are supporting one side of the war. And that is not objectively sane, We're not supposed to fight in a war, right? So we also gave support to jihadis in Syria. And here we go. So we supported the wrong side again, right? Because Assad is still in power in Syria. Yet we gave 25 million maybe even more, maybe even less. I don't know. This is an estimate, right? 25 million euros for cars, 313 in total, food, medication, communication devices, tents, uniforms, and we also trained these people. This was done secretly, right? Ja, mensen, we halen dit maar weer eens aan. Nederland gaf steun aan jihadisten in Syrië. Dit laat ook weer zien dat Nederland de verkeerde kant van de oorlog steunt. Ja, we hebben het gisteren over gehad. Rutte wil de boel gaan stabiliseren. Nou, als je steun geeft aan jihadisten, dan stabiliseer je de omgeving niet. So our demissionary Prime Minister Rutte had said we must stabilize Syria, right? Blaming Turkey for attacking northeast of Syria because of the Kurds over there that the U.S. supports. Anyway, our Prime Minister is blaming someone else whilst we are supporting the proxies trying to overthrow Syria. We are supporting the wrong side of the war, right? We also know what happened in Ukraine, right? We know about the coup. We know about the Bandera radicals in power in Ukraine. Victoria Nuland and Jeffrey Pyatt, Victoria Nuland of the State Department, who had recently quit her job, basically. I know why. Because we sent RHTVLive to Victoria Nuland on Twitter, right? And we explained the whole situation of Ukraine, and suddenly she's panicking. She's like, now even the Dutch know. So, yep. Victoria Nuland quit her job, and we are happy to see her go, right? If there's one person who's a monster, it would be Victoria Nuland, right? And our Prime Minister says, Ukraine is a democratic country and stuff like that. No, they're not. It's the U.S. State Department deciding for Ukraine to prolong the war, right? We know about the Minsk Accords and stuff like that. Germany, France, and England coming together to talk to Russia about the Donbass, and basically Merkel, who was then Chancellor of Germany, had said, we did this to stall, to give Ukraine more arms for a war, right? This was before the war. So we're going to show Victoria Nuland talking to Jeffrey Pyatt from the Ukrainian American Embassy in Ukraine. And we're going to take a look at that. So Victoria Nuland says, fuck the EU. Fuck them. I don't care. We are the US. We just do what we do, right? So, fuck the EU. Alleged audio of US diplomat Victoria Nuland swearing, talking to Jeffrey Pyatt. These are monsters.
When you're a high-ranking official talking about diplomatic efforts in Ukraine, the last thing you want to do is drop your guard.
So that would be great, I think, to help glue this thing and have the UN help glue it and, f*** the EU.
But that is exactly what reportedly happened between US Assistant Secretary of State Victoria Nuland and US Ambassador to Ukraine Jeffrey Pyatt. The exchange has since surfaced online, including the crude swipe at the European Union. The audio clip of a woman and man, said to be Nuland and Pyatt, hears them discussing strategies to work with the three main opposition figures.
I don't think Klitsch should go into the government. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's a good idea.
In terms of him not going into the government, just let him sort of stay out and do his political homework and stuff. I'm just thinking in terms of sort of the process moving ahead, we want to keep the moderate Democrats together. The problem is going to be Tony Book and his guys. And, you know, I'm sure that's part of what Yanukovych is calculating on all of this.
I think Yats is the guy who's got the economic experience, the governing experience. He's the guy, you know, what he needs is Klitsch and Tony Book on the outside. He needs to be...
So here we have the Democratic Party during the Obama term, right, deciding for Ukraine who will be mayor of Kiev and who will have the power in the Rada, the parliament over there, you know.
Be talking to them 4 times a week, you know. I just think Klitsch going in, he's going to be at that level working for Yatsenyuk. It's just not going to work.
There is a suggestion for Nuland to contact Klitschko directly to play to his top dog sensibilities, while Nuland refers to getting the United Nations involved in a political solution. And that's where the unfortunate comment arises.
I'm obviously not going to comment on private diplomatic conversations.
No, you're not going to comment on that, but you are going to dethrone Trump, right? Because he had a conversation with the new President Zelensky. Yep. We got to impeach Trump. He talked to Ukraine. Yeah. You're not allowed to talk to Ukraine, Donald. You know. They see Donald Trump as an idiot and as a madman trying to wage war everywhere. Well, the way I see it, right, we have a demented president in the U.S., and he's waging war everywhere, right? Was not Donald Trump that attacked Ukraine, you know? It was the Democrats that did that, right? They attacked Ukraine. They overthrew the parliament in Kiev. They put radicals in power. Now, how would the U.S. feel if there were, like, you know, radicals in Mexico trying to overthrow Washington? What would the U.S. do? Would they intervene? I think so, right? They intervened in Iraq. They intervened in Libya. They intervened in Syria, you know. So would the U.S. intervene in Mexico or Canada if there would be like an authoritarian power over there, you know, trying to take over Washington? Right? What would Washington do? You know, it's really insane. Look at what happened to Cuba. You know, there were Russian missiles in Cuba, and Cuba, you know, got like barricaded off of the whole world, basically, you know. And still, those rules are in place, you know. So it's insane. And talking about, you know, annexing Crimea whilst it was a referendum, right? They had a referendum in Crimea, but the U.S. is talking about annexing, Russia annexed Crimea. What about Guantanamo Bay, right? Now, where do we have Guantanamo Bay? Let's look it up, right? Guantanamo. Hey, wait a minute. That is Cuba. Yeah. So the U.S. has annexed a piece of Cuba, right? But they're pointing a finger at Crimea, saying that Crimea is annexed, whilst they had a referendum about joining Russia, right? Rules for thee, but not for me. That's how it goes. So we as the Netherlands condemn Iran for attacking Israel. But as I explained before, right, the Iranian consulate in Damascus, Syria, was attacked by Israel. So we're going to take a look at that. If you have some time to waste, let's see. There's so much to find on internet, right? So you guys can search with me. A good day to you too, Roy. Yep. We're talking geopolitics in English. Maar we kunnen ook overschakelen naar Nederlands. Hier, retaliatieaanval van Iran naar Israël. En ja, de beelden hebben we laten zien. We already show the images, but you know it's always good to repeat. Rinse and repeat, right?
We begin with the Middle East, where, as we've told you, Iran yesterday launched an air attack on Israel. We get the latest from Imtiaz Tayyab in Tel Aviv.
The sound of sirens pierced the night sky as a wave of Iranian weapons were intercepted over Israel. The Israeli military says it was targeted by more than 200 drones, cruise, and ballistic missiles.
So far, we have intercepted and are continuing to intercept dozens of attack drones as well as cruise missiles and ballistic missiles outside of Israel's border.
On the streets of Tehran, pockets of celebration for the unprecedented attack. It's the first time in history Iran has directly targeted Israeli territory. The assault was in retaliation for an airstrike by Israel on Iran's consulate in the Syrian capital Damascus early this month, killing Revolutionary Guard officers, including senior commanders. While the attacks were being carried out, the gravity of the coordinated strikes was clear as President Biden and his national security team monitored events from the White House Situation Room.
And this move by Iran marks the most serious escalation in an already unstable Middle East following Hamas's deadly October 7th attacks, which triggered Israel's massive assault on Gaza, which has laid waste to the besieged Palestinian territory and already killed tens of thousands.
In a statement, Iran's mission to the UN said,
You see, this is one-sided news, right? Because they're talking about Hamas. There are more players on the field. We have Hezbollah, right? We have the Houthis also attacking Syria, or not Syria, Israel. Syria is also a player on the field. Iraq, right? We have more players on the field. This is the sequel of the 6-Day War. Yesterday we talked about the 6-Day War, right? More countries against Israel. Israel won, because they had the air superiority and stuff. But now we have all sorts of countries attacking Israel. Hezbollah, Hamas, we have the Houthis, and Iran itself, right?
The matter can be deemed concluded. However, should the Israeli regime make another mistake, Iran's response will be considerably more severe. Despite initial reports of only limited damage, the country says it will respond. It's only a question of how and when. President Biden has vowed ironclad support for Israel, but has also appealed for restraint. Appeals which have largely been ignored by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu over the past 6 months. The fear now is this could be the beginning of a dangerous escalation that has the potential to spiral out of control.
Yep, basically, this is real dangerous, right? And we also have Iran at the UN responding to Israel, that, Israel attacked the consulate. And first we're going to listen to some words of the Israeli representative and in the United Nations, and then we'll have Iran to respond.
Ayatollah regime, in blatant violation of the UN Charter and international law, attacked the state of Israel and launched 170 UAVs, 120 ballistic missiles, and 30 cruise missiles carrying 60 tons of explosive materials at Israel. This attack was launched from Iranian soil, as well as from Lebanon, Yemen, Syria, and Iraq. Colleagues, from the moment I began my tenure here, in every speech and in countless letters, I rang the warning bell regarding Iran. I called on this council to take concrete action against the Ayatollah regime. I made it clear that Iran and its hegemonic ambitions of global domination must be stopped before it drives the world to a point of no return.
Now, I'm also not really a fan of the Ayatollah, the spiritual people who are in contact with Allah and make the laws whilst meditating. I'm not really a fan of those people. That's not democracy, that's a theocracy, right? We don't want a theocracy. So I'm not really fond of the Ayatollah, but I'm also not really fond of Israel with its apartheid regime. We know that Ariel Sharon was involved in the 6-Day War. He was a general back then, right? We know. Israel, you must stop harassing your neighbors, such as Lebanon, such as Syria. Give back the Golan Heights, right?
Regional war that can escalate to a world war. Sadly, no action was taken, and last night the world witnessed an unprecedented escalation that serves as the clearest proof for what happens when warnings aren't heeded. Israel is not the boy who cried wolf. We have been screaming from the rooftops for years, trying to wake up the international community, but to no avail. If only this council would have internalized my words, it would not have needed the bone-rattling explosions of last night's attack to wake it up. Colleagues, last night, Iran proved again that it cares nothing for Islam or Muslims. The Iranian attack seriously injured Amina al-Khazali.
You are the boy who cried wolf, right? We remember the USS Liberty. We remember this, right? You are the boy who cried wolf. It was you who attacked an embassy, and you deemed that target as a base of operations of either Hezbollah or Hamas. I don't know, but that's what you deem the target as. But it was an embassy. You screwed up royally, Israel, and Iran. I'm not a fan of the Ayatollah, but they do have the right to respond. And that's what they're doing. They're following international law, right? So we've heard enough of this Zionist guy. We're going to listen to the response of Iran.
Merciful, Madam President, as we informed in our letter last night, in response to the Israeli regime's recurring military aggression, particularly its armed attack on 1st April 2024 against Iranian diplomatic premises, a defiance of Article 2 of the Charter of the United Nations, the armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran carried out a series of military strikes on Israeli military objectives with dozens of missiles and drones. Iran's operation was entirely in the exercise of Iran's inherent right to self-defense as outlined in Article 51 of the Charter of the United Nations and recognized by international law. This concluded action was necessary and proportionate. It was precise and only targeted military objectives and carried out carefully to minimize the potential for escalation and prevent civilian harm. Madam President, we thank those members of the Council who condemned the Israeli armed attack against our diplomatic premises in Syria. Regrettably, in this chapter,
they basically attacked the airfield that attacked the embassy in Damascus, right? Which is in Israel, the airfield. Thousands, hundreds of rockets and drones, operating from Lebanon, from Syria, from Iraq, and from Iran. We're going to put that on the map. So we're going to see how many people are aligning against Israel, right? We also have Jordan, who's not really involved in the conflict, even though they closed their airspace. So let's go back to the Middle East. I don't really understand why such a big country as the United States always supports such a small country at the end of the world for the U.S. Most people cannot even find Israel on the map, right? But, the U.S. supports Israel. I don't understand this. Even when the U.S. knows that Israel targeted a U.S. ship, such as the USS Liberty, right? Guantanamo Bay, yeah. So, yeah, I really don't understand this. Don't you have a grasp of history? Don't you understand what happened prior to the state of Israel? Right? Have you forgotten about the Sykes-Picot Accords? The dismantlement of the Ottoman Empire, right? So for the people who forgot, we're also going to show the Sykes-Picot Accord or agreement about Palestine and carving up the Ottoman Empire. So we need to understand our history. Here we have the Sykes-Picot Agreement, right? Dividing up the Middle East, the Sykes-Picot Agreement. So we're going to go back there and show this here.
The Easter Uprising in Ireland, a pivotal point in Irish history. But that's not my hook today. Instead, we made a whole special episode about it so I can look at it a little deeper. But something else happened this week 100 years ago that still has major repercussions today. 100 years ago, the Allies were planning to divide up the Middle East after the war. I'm Indy Nidell. Welcome to the Great War. Last week, the spring floods had come, and the scattered action on the Eastern Front was mostly in small boats, since the rivers had burst their banks and the roads were non-existent. Flooding on the Tigris had also helped prevent the British relief force from reaching the British army under siege in Kut. And in Anatolia, the Russians had taken Trabzon from the Turks, while sending nearly 20,000 men to fight on the Western Front, where the Battle of Verdun was now 2 months old. I want to look at some naval stuff for a minute first this week. Last year, Sir John Jellicoe, commander of the British Grand Fleet, was worried that small German naval successes, U-boat warfare, and the need to send part of his fleet to secondary theaters of the war was slowly eroding British naval superiority. Near the end of the year, the ratio of British to German dreadnoughts had sunk to 17 to 15, down from 20 to 13 months before, and that of battle cruisers was only 5 to 4. But by now, the balance had swung back towards Britain's favor. The end of Gallipoli, the addition of the Italian fleet to the Mediterranean operations, and the destruction of German raiding cruisers had now made clear that the Grand Fleet had superiority. I read in John Keegan's The First World War that this month it had 31 dreadnoughts and 10 battle cruisers, while the German High Seas Fleet had only 18 dreadnoughts and 5 battle cruisers. The British...
What I don't really like about these documentaries are, they're showing the ships of war, right? Let's not forget the Britannic that had sunk as a hospital ship at the coast of Greece.
Also had a big advantage in light cruisers and destroyers. So it made sense to adopt a passive policy by which the Navy would justify its existence simply by causing the German Navy to protect its harbors. But German naval pride did not allow Germany the passive option. And in Germany, the Navy was junior to the Army and not senior like it was in Britain. And this was a time of great German bloodletting in the Army. The German Navy needed to gain the esteem of the German people. And Admiral Reinhard Scheer made clear that the Navy needed action. And he had been sending the fleet out looking for it. And this week, he got it. On April 25th, the day after German naval forces bombarded Lowestoft and Yarmouth, came a battle between Zeppelins, battle cruisers, and submarines on the German side, and destroyers, land batteries, airplanes, and seaplanes on the British side. The airplanes and seaplanes had flown up to attack the Zeppelins that were heading west and flying high. The Zeppelins turned out to sea, and the planes followed, bringing them within range of the naval guns. 4 U-boats then appeared and began firing at one of the planes. One of the airplanes was actually destroyed by fire from a Zeppelin, and 2 seaplanes were damaged by fire from the subs. That sounds pretty mundane, but the timing of this, coming on the heels of the Irish Easter Uprising, caused a lot of concern and also big anti-German anger in civilian Britain, but showed that as long as the Grand Fleet at Scapa Flow blocked off the exit from the North Sea, German operations would be hit and run against targets close enough to run from to home before the big ships of the British could head south and intervene. And intervening is something the Allies were quite good at. The Sykes-Picot Agreement, named after Englishman Sir Mark Sykes and Frenchman Georges Picot.
Let's also not forget the Lusitania, right, which involved the U.S.
was signed April 26, 1916, although some sources say May 9th and others say May the 16th. But this was a secret agreement between Britain and France with Russian approval, which divided the Middle East between them. France would control Lebanon, with a capital at Beirut. There would be a sovereign Arab state in Syria based around Damascus, which would still be under French protection. Britain would be in charge of the port of Haifa and the city of Accra, controlling the bay that would make it a Mediterranean terminal for Mesopotamian oil. Palestine would be under protection of Britain, France, and Russia combined. France would get southeastern Turkey and northern Iraq. Britain would also get southern Iraq, and Russia, Istanbul, and the Armenian regions of Anatolia. The map was divided pretty much with straight lines. 100 years later, this agreement still defines many of the conflicts of the region. It defined the borders of Syria and Iraq, certainly helped precipitate the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians, and was a big turning point in Western Arab relations, since it, in advance, negated all of the promises Britain would make to Arabs for an Arab homeland in Greater Syria. ISIS has even claimed that one of their goals is to reverse the effects of the Sykes-Picot Agreement, which would be made public in 1917 to the great consternation of the Arab world. But all that had to happen for it to go into effect was to defeat the Ottoman Empire. Thing is, the Ottoman Empire was far from being defeated, as they were showing in Mesopotamia. On April 27th, 3 British officers, including Captain T.E. Lawrence, soon known as Lawrence of Arabia, offered the Ottomans £2 million in gold to allow the besieged British and Indian troops at Kut to go free and rejoin their comrades. The Turkish commander replied, "Your gallant troops will be our most sincere and precious guests." Russian troops were driving west from Persia, from the Paytak Pass, trying to reach Kut, but were still 150 kilometers from Baghdad, and by the 28th, Kut was finally out of food. And looking just a bit to the west, we see some developments at the Suez Canal. Last month, General Sir Archibald Murray had taken command of the Egyptian Expeditionary Force, the EEF, which had been put together.
We know about the Suez Canal, right? We know our history. Let's not forget our history, right? We are making the same mistakes or even worse mistakes than we had made back then, right? We want peace. We want to be free from the invisible chains that bound us, free. I don't care whether you're Palestinian. I don't care whether you're Israeli. I don't care whether you're Ukrainian or Russian. I don't care. You are a human being. You have red blood, right? And the people in power, they don't care. They don't care at all, right? They don't care. They'll send, people with Down syndrome to the front lines. They don't care. They don't care. You see, and they don't want the information to come out because, they'll do anything to stall that information, right? So we're going to show a video clip, a very interesting video clip of a former FBI agent, now CIA agent, talking about getting rid of Alex Jones. This is really, really concerning. So here we go. Sound Investigations is a journalist group talking to this guy here Gavin O'Blennis, Contracting Officer, CIA.
What are we doing there?
Wherever we need to. We're under State Department cover.
So Ukraine doesn't even know that CIA is there?
Oh, they know.
Oh, do they?
I mean, it's a well-known secret, right?
Right.
Because we're the Central Intelligence Agency. We give them intelligence and advice all the time. I mean, send advisors. Mike, this is what the U.S. would do. Okay. I did what they call the credible fear interviews for like people who seek asylum. I did that for like 3,000 people. Most of the people get there knowing they're not going to qualify, but they try. Because, you know, if you do it enough times, you get a sympathetic ear, and they're like, approved.
Recall Gavin O'Blennis, the CIA officer who currently manages multi-million-dollar contracts across government agencies and private sector.
Oh, something's up here.
Before the CIA, O'Blennis worked for the FBI and then briefly for Homeland Security.
What's my signing authority? 300 million? Yeah, I do have a copy of the paper.
Now I know my friend.
See, there you go.
It says, congratulations. It has the seal on it. See, I will tell her with my own eyes that I saw it. And hiring official is Scott Hobson.
I like the Bureau, too. The Bureau was a lot of fun. I got to do a lot of cool stuff with the Bureau. I was the guy in the back of the truck in the van.
Speaking to a Sound Investigations undercover reporter, O'Blennis seems to have confirmed an anonymously sourced New York Times article about the CIA's involvement in the Ukraine conflict.
Are agents everywhere in the world? Every embassy? Even Ukraine?
Yep.
But that's not... I didn't know that.
Why wouldn't we be?
Oh, right. What are we doing there?
Wherever we need to.
Right.
We're under State Department cover.
Good.
So if I go overseas, my name will change. I'll have a full background. And I'll go by that name while I'm overseas.
Wow. So Ukraine doesn't even know that CIA is there?
Oh, they know.
Oh, do they?
I mean, it's a well-known secret, right?
Right.
It's where the Central Intelligence Agency. We're not allowed to operate inside the U.S. So what do?
Go outside the U.S. So you guys must know a whole lot more about the Ukraine conflict than the news is actually saying.
I mean, that's just what we do.
What's that?
Yeah, we know too. Gavin O'Blennis. We know too. We know you are destabilizing media such as InfoWars, Alex Jones, right? And you don't want the truth to come out. You have a whole troll army, right? Gavin O'Blennis.
Good at it, right? I don't, but you know, I just transfer the money and spend the money for them.
When it comes to Ukraine, the agency can really get involved in the military, right?
We give them
Yeah, what's happening here?
intelligence and advice all the time.
What about combat?
We don't really do that. We're not allowed. Send advisors.
We're not allowed. What was it? The Bay of Pigs in Cuba? Yeah, we're not allowed to do that, right? Advisors, yeah, right.
Advisors? Also kind of like in the form of a general?
Right. This is what the U.S. would do. Okay. That was in San Diego. We did seize the billionaire shop from Russia.
That must have been cool.
It was. I've never seen a solid gold toilet, so I sat on it.
You went in?
Yeah. I was taking pictures.
Amazing.
It was worth $970 million.
And who is this?
One of Putin's oligarchs. We seized the boat.
Oh my. Why?
Because we could.
There was no need.
No need for it. We just did it.
Just because?
It's there.
How many times does the Bureau do that?
A lot.
Really?
Yeah. We seize all kinds of...
No, we don't care. We don't care. We use your tax money to steal away the things that you own.
People, other countries, people we don't like, we seize all kinds of their shit. Because all their money comes through here, right? Everything's based on the U.S. dollar. So at some point, it's going to touch American bank accounts, and we just kind of go,
So you can...
We freeze them.
That's good.
stupid. Like, we've got $35 billion in Putin's money frozen in New York.
That's amazing. Good.
He's like, that's not yours. Yeah, it is. It's in our accounts. It's on our shores. Why don't we use that to give to Ukraine? I don't know. I'm sure there's some legal reason we can't do it. But
that's interesting.
Well, you know, then international money laws come into play, and it gets a little murky.
O'Blennis also spoke about his experience working for Homeland Security at the southern border.
Just to prove you, I did work for Homeland Security.
O'Blennis, United States government. Oh, that's cool.
Just so you know, I did what they call the credible fear interviews for like people who seek asylum.
Okay.
So basically, you're coming and saying, I need asylum, and I have to interview you to make sure you hit the criteria. Like, are you persecuted against because of your religion, you know, the tribe you're from, or stuff like that? You know, is there fear of rape? Is there fear of human trafficking? That kind of stuff. So I sit on these interviews, and I'm like, you know, your story's really sad, but you don't know.
Right. Oh, that's difficult.
Yeah.
How many people did you have to do that?
I did that for like 3,000 people.
Out of how many?
Out of however many were coming. Like, I was there for 2 months.
So that many people didn't qualify?
Oh, yeah.
So it's true that they're kind of just utilizing the system?
Yeah. Oh. Most of the people get there knowing they're not going to qualify, but they try. Because, you know, if you do it enough times, you get a sympathetic ear, and they're like, approved.
While Congress debates a controversial bill that could break up TikTok, O'Blennis explains how the CIA could benefit from TikTok becoming an American-owned product.
What about this TikTok thing?
What about it?
It's
Do we use it? Yes.
You can?
Oh, we use it.
How so?
The agency uses it.
We know the agency uses it. We know you're on all sorts of platforms, right? We know you're watching over us. We know we are shadow banned because we are speaking the truth here. We are showing the audience the truth.
What people put out on social media.
Really?
Yeah, it tells you everything you need to know.
So why are we banning it?
Because it's owned by China, which they're pulling all the information to get intelligence. A lot of people think it's like, it doesn't tell you anything, but it actually tells you a lot. Like, where are you filming? Oh, you know, are you in your room? What do you have in your room? What do you buy? I mean, it tells you all this.
So why don't we use it retroactively and turn that around for us?
Yeah.
How so? That's what shocks me about TikTok. Like, why don't we use it for our advantage?
Maybe we do, maybe we don't.
Just leave it like that.
Yeah, just leave it like that.
But I mean, if it's banned, we can't use it, or can we?
Correct. Well, we can use it if it's owned, if it's broken off. It has like an American subsidiary that's housed here, that's owned here. Then we can use it.
Why haven't we done that? Like, we are brilliant.
That's why they're passing the law now to make it.
So that was not the clip I was trying to watch, right? This guy here also was talking about Alex Jones, you know, and really, really sad to see what's happening. Let's see if we can find that. Oh, yeah, here we have Greta being arrested in The Hague. So the woman was shouting, "Retarded people, get off the road."
The police wants you to leave.
Yes?
You're not going?
We're staying here because we know what is at stake, and we are not going to give up.
You are an extremist, right? There's nothing wrong with the world. There's something wrong with your mental capacity of understanding what's happening in the world, right? So we're trying to find, here we have, people with Down syndrome fighting in Ukraine on the front lines.
блядь? Срався? Хто чергує, Воха?
Сережа.
Сережа. Ага. Що ти на дембель підеш, Воха?
Так.
Підеш, да? Ой, молодець, блядь. Воха, чув, як москалів роз'їбашили в Москві, блядь?
Так.
Чув. Що, ти відділ підеш?
Yeah.
Будеш...
So, poor guy, he needs to go to the front lines, right? Let's see. Here we have a troll saying, we're going to war, right? We're going to go to war. Yeah, you go to the front lines. This is what they do when you try to evade the Ukrainian army. So much for a democracy, huh? Yep. Oh yeah, Cherry. The parliament is accusing Cherry of using Russian money. Oh, Russian money. Even though now they found out that the FIDE, Forum for Democracy, has not had Russian money, right? So we're going to take a look at Thierry Boudet joking around.
Zie je wel, is dat nou Russisch geld dat je daar
Ik
hebt?
zit mijn geld te tellen, ja. Nee, dat is helemaal niet waar. Het is ook weer duidelijk geworden, ook vandaag weer het nieuws. Er is geen enkele reden om aan te nemen dat wij smeergeld zouden hebben ontvangen of omgekocht zouden hebben. Allemaal niets van waar, niets van waar. Al 8 jaar wordt dit mij in de schoen geschoven. Er is geen sprake van. Wij dragen onze opvattingen uit vanuit overtuiging. Ik doe wat ik doe uit overtuiging, omdat ik van dit land hou. En het is een grof schandaal dat al die politici maar wegkomen met die holle, lege, nergens op gebaseerde beschuldigingen.
Kijk, dat heet dus de frame van consensus. Ja, je hebt een bepaalde consensus. Rusland, oh, dat is een dreiging. Moeten we oppassen voor Rusland. De frame van consensus was al gemaakt toen Hillary Clinton verloren had in 2016. Zij gaf Rusland de schuld van het hacken van de DNC. The Democratic National Convention. You guys remember that? Seth Rich, right? So when Hillary lost, she blamed everyone and she blamed Russia. And that stuck in her head. Russia, 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 Russia. Now everything in Europe is anti-Russia. Oh, Russia, Russia bad, Russia bad. They're even blaming the FIDE of getting Russian money, even though they investigated the FIDE and they have no connections to Russia or Russian money. So let's see if we can. Here we have Alex Jones.
Is so massive. There are now congressional hearings on FISA and the warrantless wiretapping and spying on the American people, where they're openly discussing the FBI and CIA's operations against myself and Tucker Carlson designed to destroy us. The entire house of cards is coming down now.
You can kind of put anyone in jail if you know what to do.
How?
You set them up.
Does the Bureau practice entrapment a lot?
Yeah, we get really close. We call it a nudge.
A nudge?
A nudge. Sometimes you just gotta give them a quick little, just see what happens. Sometimes you light the fuse and just wait for it to follow. Nothing like putting out a fake social media thing to like really get people mad.
The undercover footage of Gavin O'Blennis, former FBI, current CIA, has taken the internet by storm. Hundreds of millions of people have seen it. But this is only a tiny window into this world where they're openly admitting that they're targeting Tucker Carlson, targeting Alex Jones, putting us on list, trying to shut us down. Remember 3 years ago, Tucker Carlson said, hey, I just told by high-level sources the NSA spying on me and giving it illegally to the Washington Post. His text messages. the Washington Post came out and said, you're right, we are, and here's your text messages. Ladies and gentlemen, this is total, warrantless, lawless tyranny to suppress the people, and it is the greatest threat facing our nation and the world.
Do you trust the government?
In 2021, the FBI conducted over 3 million FISA searches of Americans, and in 2022, the FBI was still conducting hundreds of such warrantless queries per day.
We often hear the claim that it's for your safety.
So, do you think that members of Congress get spied on through these loopholes?
Yes, 100%. In fact, I'm quite confident in some capacity that I'm sure I'm on a list.
FBI conducted over 278,000 searches of the 702 FISA database that violated the Justice Department's own rules.
Anytime the government tells us it's for your safety, the American people really question what that means.
Alex Jones, if you're listening, Alex Jones, you have a right to be a little bit flustered, right? Your feathers should be flustered right now with what that agent, that former CIA guy or that CIA guy said about you. And same with Tucker. I'll tell you, go after him, go after him. This weaponization that the Republicans have said has happened with the DOJ, it's true, America.
While other networks lie to you about what's happening now, InfoWars tells you the truth about what's happening next. Infowars.com/go.
We are about to break information critically vital, not just to the future of America, but the future of free peoples across the world. Myself, my crew, my organization, and my family have been the victims in the last 7 years of a CIA, Justice Department, FBI, globalist attack. Now, I didn't understand the full scope of this until just the last year, but listeners and viewers have heard me break down the fact that it was a CIA, FBI coordinated operation. It's now begun to come out in just the last week. There have been congressional hearings. There have been documents. There have been operatives who've been caught in clandestine recordings, and even more is set to come out in the next week to 2 weeks. So this information is explosive. Now,
this is what happens when you tell the truth, right? You are a target. You're supposed to believe in the lie, not in the truth. You know, we lied to you. We invest a lot of money in media, and we lied to you 24/7, and you're supposed to believe the bullshit that we give you. But I can think. I have a brain, right? I have a memory. I know my history. I know what's happening. We are becoming more totalitarian than the USSR ever was. A world government. That's what they want, right? We had the WHO. I don't know what's happening in your country, but our parliament had said we give our sovereignty to the WHO. They are our overlords. They know best, right? They know when to declare a pandemic and blah, 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 blah. You know, so we already gave our sovereignty, you know, and yeah. Buy Netherlands. Buy. It's not the country I know, right? And I'm sick of this. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of being ruled by people with no empathy for other people halfway around the world, right? We know what's happening. We know what's happening. And I stand with you, Alex, right? This is the Dutch Department of InfoWars / fake Mike Real News. Let's not forget Will Turvitt.
a lot of the regular viewers and listeners of my syndicated daily show know the details of this, but we've talked about it in chunks and pieces. Now we're going to lay it all out succinctly with the new information here today. But here's the bottom line. Let's start going through the articles and start here. GOP lawmakers condemn CIA FBI attack against Alex Jones. and this is in congressional hearings and in interviews. Breaking, Republican congressmen and women call for official investigation to FBI, CIA setup of Alex Jones. Representative.
They're using Alex Jones as a straw man, you know? They're breaking him and stuff like that so they can get to us the plebs as they see it, right? They want to control the internet, the last beacon of freedom of speech.
Representative Troy Nels, Representative Paulina Luna, Representative Mike Lee, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, and more are now calling for official hearings and criminal investigations of the information that's broken in the last week.
Alex Jones, if you're listening, Alex Jones, you have a right to be a little bit flustered, right? Your feathers should be flustered right now with what that agent, that former CIA guy or that CIA guy said about you. And same with Tucker. I'll tell you, go after him, go after him. This weaponization that the Republicans have said has happened with the DOJ.
We are going after Gavin O'Bennett or whatever his name is, right? You know, we are exposing this. Gavin O'Blennis, that's it, right? Some guy, you know, flashing around, you know, hey, I'm the cool agent, man. You know, I'm James Bond. I'm going to destabilize Ukraine. Ukraine's got to listen to us, right? Yeah, Ukraine is a democracy. Screw you. Ukraine is being controlled by the CIA. We have a CIA guy, you know, saying this. Really, really sad to see what's going on in and around our beautiful planet. So we're also going to take a look at Haiti, of course, because we haven't had the radar on Haiti lately. So let's take a look at what's happening in Haiti. And yeah, get our mind fixed on something else, right? Because this is all part of the war, you know. We're the foot soldiers of truth. We bear the light in these dark times, right? So we're going to show some images of Haiti. And yeah, we know what's happening in Haiti. The gangs have taken control of Haiti. The president had fled the country, basically trying to make a coalition to invade Haiti, to get rid of these gangs, right? But the president said, yeah, I'm going to quit. And the government is even more in decay in Haiti. And we're going to take a look at what happened 2 days ago, what's happening in Haiti. So
hello and welcome to FP Live. I'm Ravi Agrawal, Foreign Policy's Editor-in-Chief. Now, this program often focuses on stories that dominate the halls of power from the Beltway to Brussels and Beijing, but we wanted to examine a crisis today that is not getting much attention in the right places, and it should. I'm talking about Haiti. Quite simply, it is in deep trouble. This is the biggest security crisis in the Western Hemisphere. More than 80% of Haiti's capital is controlled by gangs. Violence in Port-au-Prince has driven more than 160,000 people to flee, 50,000 of them in just the last few weeks alone. How did we get here? When it comes to Haiti, many moments in history you could point to as causes for the current strife. After all, the Haitian Revolution was one of the biggest slave rebellions ever recorded in the West, and that began in the 1790s. But the most proximate flashpoint was in late February when acting Prime Minister Ariel Henry was out of the country and major gangs coordinated to attack state institutions. They burnt police stations, sprung inmates from prison, and attacked the seaport and the airport. The city is cut off from supplies of food and medicine, and aid organizations are warning of an impending famine. It is a humanitarian crisis, the likes of which has not been seen since the massive earthquake there in 2010. All of this is happening in a political vacuum. In July 2021, President Jovenel Moïse was assassinated by armed gunmen inside his home. A month ago, the unelected, Western-backed Henry announced that he would resign, but only after the installation of a transitional presidential council. Now, that council, after weeks of negotiation, finalized their political framework earlier this week. It is now up to Henry to accept it. Will he? What does a democratic transition for Haiti look like? Can Haitian police quell the violence, or will an international force be deployed to help them? We will explore answers. Joining me now are two people who have been closely following this crisis. Jacqueline Charles is the Miami Herald's award-winning Caribbean correspondent. She has covered Haiti for more than a decade. And Jake Johnston is a senior research associate for the Center for Economic and Policy Research. He's the author of a timely new book, Aid State, Elite Panic, Disaster Capitalism, and the Battle to Control Haiti, which we reviewed in FP. Jacqueline, Jake, welcome to FP Live.
Thanks. Thanks for having us.
Great to have you on, and thanks for making us smarter about Haiti. Jacqueline, I wanted to start with you. I know you have extensive contacts in Haiti within family and, of course, all of your diplomatic sources. Paint us a picture. What is life like for people on the ground right now?
I mean, if there's one word I can think about, it's just panic. You just don't know what every day is going to bring. You know, you wake up and you hear the gunshots. I mean, people are telling me that when they don't hear the gunfire, that's when they start to panic and wonder what's wrong, because now it's become such a constant theme for them. You know, unfortunately, you know, with the vandalism, the burning, the looting of hospitals, it's very difficult to get health care. And as somebody said today, people still get sick. Just last week, you know, I interviewed a young lady who's literally is watching her mother die. Her mother had not had dialysis in basically like 6 weeks, because the only place that she could get it, the general hospital, was basically, you know, not functioning because gangs had taken over that entire road. You can't go anywhere. If you take that risk, you don't know whether you're going to be the next victim. I mean, doctor said that, you know, you get a phone call from a patient, and first there's the sense of panic for you in terms of taking this personal risk, the safety to go out. And then when you get there, what do you do when there's no medication? The store shelves are starting to run bare. In about 2 weeks or less, we're going to really start to see a humanitarian crisis, because it's not just the people in the camps, but also the people who are not in the camps, who are not going to be able to find food because the airport, the seaport, has been shut down for over a month now.
Jake, I'm wondering if you can add to that. What are you hearing about what's going on in Haiti, and where do you rank this in terms of other crises Haiti has had in the past?
Yeah, I think in almost every way, this is unprecedented, at least in recent history. I think you've heard for years. And again, you know, I think we need to understand that this didn't just happen a month ago. This has been a long time coming and a long time building. There have been warnings about it reaching this stage for many years, right? And yet we've just sort of continually seen this. And, you know, I mean, I think Jackie's right around the situation on the ground. I mean, I think things are obviously really tense, and I think there's also just this unknown, partially because nobody is speaking, right? The authorities that are currently in power, and Henry is out of the country, totally silent. This presidential council that's being formed with the backing of international powers, also totally silent. And in that absence, who is speaking are the leaders of armed groups, are politicians on the ground who are advocating for very different things. And so what is the authority? What is the plan? I think everyone's sort of in the dark.
So we just saw Mr. Barbecue, right? And very sad to see what's happening in Haiti. So, yeah, we traversed around the world, right? We started in the Netherlands. We went to the Middle East. And now we showed you what's happening in Haiti, right? So, what else is there to look at? Well, Ecuador, we remember what happened in Ecuador, right? The Mexican embassy was raided by the Ecuadorian special police forces, and this was after Israel had shot the missile in Damascus. So the international rules of law are, obsolete. Kind of reminds me of that Twilight Zone episode, right? The obsolete man, you are obsolete. We are not obsolete. We are just not listened to, right? Wherever you look, whether it's Haiti, whether it's America, whether it's Canada, whether it's some other country in and on our beautiful planet, the people are not listened towards. Democracy does not work, right? We need to think of new ways and new forms for governance, right? We need to make our own World Economic Forum. That's what we need to do to fight this global hegemony, right? Trying to take over every country on the planet. The world government. The EU is a blueprint for the world government. In the US, Canada, and Mexico, they also have plans on table to merge those three countries. The North American Union, right? You think I'm just thinking about this, you're just making it up? No, of course not. You can look it up on Google. North American Union. There. We found it, and we're also going to show it, right? So here we have the North American Union, conglomeration of the three countries I just said, right? Canada, the US, and Mexico. And the central power would be Washington. And you'd also have one currency, a new form of dollar, and everything would be start anew, right? With a new currency, with a new underlying backing of the currency, right? If you look at it right now, you guys get the petrodollar, right? You invest in oil and you sell oil in petrodollars. America gets money from that, right? That is not fair, not according to me. I do not want a Pax Americana where America has to say anything in the world, and when one farts, then America says, yeah, weapons of mass destruction, we're going to invade, I don't want that. I don't want the US intervening in Ukraine or other countries, right? So, and I hope that most Americans, Canadians watching, Mexicans watching, this is not good, right? The North American Union, you must stop the North American Union because it's still on table. This is what they want. The centralization of power. So they can make the ivory tower they live in even bigger, right? So the throne of power is covered in blood. If you want power, you got to do something. Yep. Because if you don't work along with them, right, then there's this very cool clip of Bill Hicks who talks about JFK, right? So we're going to show that clip. Bill Hicks puppet show, The Elite.
I had this feeling, man, because there's a handful of people actually run everything. That's true. It's provable. It's not I'm not a conspiracy nut. It's provable. Handful, very small elite running these corporations, which include the mainstream media. I had this feeling who's ever elected president, like Clinton was, no matter what your promises you promise on the campaign trail, blah, 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 when you win, you go into this smoky room with the 12 industrialist, capitalist scumfucks who got you in there, and you're in this smoky room, and this little film screen comes down, and a big guy in a cigar, roll the film. And it's a shot of a Kennedy assassination from an angle you've never seen before. It looks suspiciously off the grassy knoll. And then the screen goes up and the lights come up and they go to the new president. Any questions? Just what my agenda is. First we bomb Baghdad. You got it.
This is how the levers of power work, right? And, when you're president, you go to this dark room, as Bill Hicks describes it, and, you have these people, industrialists and stuff, and the president listens to them. And Donald Trump, whether you like him or not, he said, you listen to me. I'm the president, right? That's a whole different way of having power, right? You have power over them. They don't have power over you. You see? And Donald Trump is also a straw man, right? It's the frame of consensus. You see, the Netherlands, we support Biden because, why? Well, we gave millions of euros to the Clinton Foundation. Yeah, 4.4 million euros to the Clinton Foundation. So, this is why we believe in the democratic frame of consensus, right? Not in the Republican frame of consensus. Nope. So we're going to show an article of that the Dutch government gave 4.4 million euros to the Clinton Foundation. And, over here in the Netherlands, we're like, oh, Russia's intervening in the elections and blah, 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 blah. Well, we're going to show an article of Dutch interference in the American elections, right? Nederland geeft miljoenen aan Clinton Foundation. So the Netherlands gave millions of euros, as I've said before, right? 4.4 million euros to the Clinton Foundation. This was in Tuesday, 30 April 2015, during the presidential campaign. And we blame Russia for interfering in foreign elections, whilst we do it ourselves, right? This is what's happening. And yeah, there's a lot more to say. But I think we've said enough for now. We will be back telling the truth, spreading the light and information on what's happening. And hopefully we'll come back with a forum, talking to Canadians, Americans, and other people in and around our beautiful planet. And yeah, who knows? I always wanted to do a forum again. I haven't done that in ages, so who knows? We're going to show Samson, which is some kind of rapper, an American rapper guy. And he's got pretty good songs, man, I like his songs. So we're going to take a look at history, as we always do on RHTVLive. And we are remembering what happened on January 6th, right? What happened again? Well, the Democratic Party used the frame of consensus to say those deplorables are trying to overthrow the U.S., right? So, and Samson has a nice song of that.
Like Nancy didn't flinch, in fact, they loved it then.
We got to rewind. There we go.
Fellow Americans, good morning. Certain dates echo throughout history.
The January 6th insurrection.
January 6th attack on the United States Capitol.
The January 6th Capitol insurrection. January 6th.
January 6th.
January the 6th.
January 6th.
Including dates that instantly remind all who have lived through them where they were and what they were doing when our democracy came under assault.
These clear acts of sedition and violence and terrorism.
A violent terrorist attack on the Capitol.
Such an attack on our democracy.
Violent attack to overthrow an election.
The worst attacks in American history.
If I can't have it my way, I'll burn the whole country down.
Dates that occupy not only a place on our calendars, but a place in our collective memory. December 7th, 1941. September 11th, 2001, and January 6th, 2021.
Newsflash, nobody gives a fuck about it. We all admit that shit was pretty dumb, but that's about it. When we saw the news, we were shocked and we were kind of tense. Like, damn. Then we forgot about it by the 10th. Nobody's walking around stressing over Jan 6. It happened and that was it. We haven't gave a damn since. It's all good when riots are kept in the hood, but now you're freaking out cause this was in the neck of your woods. Now it's a big deal. Now it gets real. Now it's important to us. Not back then in 2020 when stores were boarded up. Not back then when goods were looted and folks were brutalized. Not then, but right now, cause it happened to the suit and ties. That shit's way above my head. We were fucking shit up all year with demonstrations that left dozens dead. But people like Nancy didn't flinch, in fact they loved it then. People will do what they do, bitch, ain't that what you said? Yep. There's literally compilation videos of you and all your colleagues inciting this kind of crap. So it's very fascinating to watch you swallow your word, put your own foot in your mouth, and now you're forced to dial it back. It's fine when you encourage it in my town, and his town, and her town, when the whole fucking city's being burnt down. You smile as you give the green light for mobs to rob shit, but as soon as it comes close to you, then it's a problem. Got it. I don't condone what happened on that day, especially the officers that were assaulted. I would never dare. But as for all the politicians that were there, you fuck us over all the time, so don't expect us to care. I care more about the store owner that's getting beat down in front of his shop just for trying to protect his place of business. He would probably help me if he saw me on the ground dying. Y'all wouldn't do a damn thing. Shit, you'd probably say good riddance. You'd walk right over me like I was a crack, and you were trying to save your mother's back like a 5-year-old kid. If you did acknowledge me, you'd probably nudge my body and go, aw, little fucker must have died of COVID. You know it's true. Stop bluffing. They do absolutely nothing that is trusting. Kamala, for you to compare this to Pearl Harbor and 9/11 is disrespectful and fucking disgusting. That's the most self-centered thing that I've ever seen. Compared to those events, it's not even worth remembering. No one that I know is even still paying attention to it. We'd all forget this shit in like a month if nobody mentioned it. Yep. And you know it too. You're gonna milk this thing and squeeze it till it's bone dry and it won't drip any juice, while your stupid committee's wasting money convicting people from a year ago while CNN runs continued loops. We would rather hear you address a million other issues. We don't want to listen to you cry. Get a fucking tissue. So many things could be dealt with in a jiff, but you would rather sit in front of us and smell your own shit. I refuse to show concern for a group of people that I have no respect for. I won't go there. I'm not happy about it, I'm not mad about it either. I'm just neutral on the issue, I just don't care. Yeah, I'm back.
Yeah, Samson, we like your songs. You know, it's cool to listen to. So before we close off, we're going to show a whole list of things that our Prime Minister, demissionary Prime Minister, has failed to do, right? But first, we're going to take a look at this here. The United Slavs of America. Whatever happened to the Statue of Liberty, right? Now one big slob eating pizza and drinking cola. But here we have a whole list of things that you know, our Prime Minister had failed to do, or yeah. So 77,000 people were fired from healthcare. The healthcare facilities were closed. Hospitals were closed. The Ukraine referendum, which we said no, he made into a yes. We had a referendum, but after having two referendums, which the politicians did not like, they said no referendum anymore for the people, you know. The work, the age limit of work is skyrocketed, right? First it was 60, now it's 67 or something like that. First it was 60, then 63, then 65, and now it's 67, and now they even want to go to 69, right? You are the cash cow. You know, you got to work harder. You got to pay more. So they didn't index the pensions, right? They speculate on the pensions. You know, we financed terrorism, right? As I've shown before, the AD, we supported jihadis in Syria. The sleepnetwet, which is track and trace law. We signed the track and trace law, right? 16,000 cases aren't followed up upon, right? So during the pandemic, the Dutch population had pressed charges against the Ministry of Health and the Minister of Health and this guy here, Mark Rutte. And the police said, nope, we're not going to do that. So 16,000 cases are flushed through the toilet. The gasoline is skyrocketed. You know, this is a whole list of things. MH17, right? We have no access of what the government told us what happened to MH17, right? John Kerry had said, we have video evidence of Buck missile shooting down MH17, and that's what the government told us. You know, we have this evidence, but the evidence is top secret. You're not allowed to look at it as a civilian. So, you know, the whole list of things that our prime minister has failed to do. We haven't even talked about the child benefit care scandal, right? Where the government took more than 3,000 kids and, you know, from families, right? These families were put on a fraud list by the IRS, right? And these people didn't even know about this. And from one day to another, they were put on a fraud list and they couldn't buy anything anymore because their bank accounts were frozen and stuff like that. And because the IRS, you know, they needed to do something. We're going to put that on a fraud list. That guy, that missus over there, she's got kids. We're going to earn a lot of money on that. You know, we're going to take the kids. So this is what's happening in the Netherlands. And I could go on for hours, you know. But I think I've said enough. The power belongs to the people, not the people in power. And don't forget, right? If you choose one side, you'll fight the other side. Yeah, you'll be guilty of fighting the other side. So, we'll see each other again next time. I thank you all for watching and sharing, right? Sharing is caring. And I hope you guys have subscribed. See you guys next time.